I'm standing on the pedals right now in order to get a good punch so I can get a good start with this race. So that means getting toward the front of the race almost immediately, as opposed to having a smaller punch and then having to work my way back up toward the front to have a little bit of buffer. That will take a lot more energy. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. This is my second Bolt Masters race. I like the Bolt races because they have 10-year age increments with separate starts. There's a lot of other Masters races that are going on in Zwift, but they don't have separate starts. So they have the 60-69s in my case, starting with the 30-39s. And that for me kind of sucks. Last week was my first Bolt race, and the course was a little bit different. It was flattish, when this one is flat. So the other one was about a little over 19 miles, and it went about 650 feet of climbing. And this one is about 22 miles plus and about 190 feet of climbing. Last week I lasted about a third of the race, about 8 miles, before I dropped off the main group, and so I'm hoping to do better. I'm hoping to make it to 9.8 miles, which is the length of the city crits that I usually do. A couple of my race buddies are in this race, Bob and Frank, as well as new friend Angela, who I met last week at this race. She is 50-something and gets to race up 10 years by the rules, and I have not beaten any of these three yet. Bob and I were texting before the race, and he was giving me this information that we had a lot of strong horses, and that there's one national champion in here. There's some guy that weighs 72 kilograms that has 400 watt FTP. I never had a 400 watt FTP. The highest I ever had was years and years ago at 333. By going up this one climb, this 40-minute climb, I averaged about 333 watts. Usually my FTP back when I was young cycling Greek was around in the 3 teens or so, 320 as high sometimes. He then told me about another guy that we're racing against that can hold 6.4 watts per kilogram for 20 minutes. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, you know, that 9.8 miles to stay with the main group is starting to go away in my mind. So the first thing I'm looking for is that 8-mile mark to see if I can pass it from last week. The next thing I'm looking for is that 9.8-mile mark, the length of the city crits. Then after that, I'm looking to hang on as long as I can. Jumping ahead to the 8-mile mark, we're a little over 17 minutes into this race, and I've averaged 259 watts. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of accomplishment. This is where I got dropped last time. Now, the course was a little bit different, and I was on a small riser that I got dropped. But I still consider this a win, or at least an improvement. So what I did to get prepared for this race is the same thing that I developed at my last crit, which was the anti-sandbagging crit. And this is where I did not ride the day before. Ordinarily I could do that, at least when I was a younger cycling Greek, but now that I'm 65, that doesn't seem to work out so well for me. When I did get on the bike this morning, I spun easy for about 7-8 minutes or so, and then I went right into my 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off, doing 4 sets, starting with 2 watts per kilogram, 2.5 watts per kilogram, 3 and 3.5 watts per kilogram. When I did that work, I stayed in a small ring, so I was taxing my aerobics more than I was my muscles. After that, I did a couple of 15-second jumps. Speaking of jumps, I jump again to the halfway point of this 23-mile race. As soon as I passed the 9.8-mile city crit distance, I started counting miles. My average power has dropped to 255 watts, but I'm still with the main group. Now, a change is starting to happen. I'm starting to weaken. Where before I was toward the front and always made sure I was toward the front to act as a buffer, and I'd go back and then come back up again. Now it's starting to get a little harder, and I'm starting to spend more time in the middle and actually toward the back. I've become aware of my gearing and use that to rest. Now, through laziness, arguably, I am using my crit bike, which has a 55-tooth chainring in the front. And to continue with my laziness, my rear wheel in the back, I have an 1121 on my power tap. I can use my other bike, which is a road bike that has a compact gearing on it, or I can use one of the other 2 wheels that I have that I use for the road bike that have either an 1129 or an 1125. But I go with my 11:21. Jumping ahead again, where I was using my 55:19 as my staple, I've now had to go to my 21 in order to rest, and then go back to the 19. And then sometimes I had to go to the 18 in order to get up to back to the pack. So you see what's happening now. This is what's been happening in about the last third of the race for me. I try to rest as much as I can. I definitely stayed off the front, but I try to stay in the pack. Then there's a surge, and then this. I'm now chasing, and now I look at the graphics on the right hand side, and I'm at the bottom there, but there's not a lot of people behind me. In fact, right now I'm 15th out of 34, but I think that there really isn't too many people behind me before there's a break. So unless there's one or more riders that are dying as much as I am, if I lose contact with this pack, I'm going to be solo. I'm not going to have a chase group with me. Actually, this could be my chase group right now. Now there's a two-second gap to that group in front of us. And if I had the legs, I would jump up there, but obviously I don't have the legs. I'm trying to just stay with these guys because a lot of these guys have the legs. And now I am hoping that they pull me back up to the others. I am just over 2/3 of the way done with this race, and my average wattage has dipped to about 251 watts. I don't know how, but somebody that's putting a lot of wattage has gotten the dexterity and the energy to text a message to the screen. That is the most impressive thing I've seen during this race. What you haven't seen that I've cut out in making this video is that we have caught up to a couple of other chase groups from the 50-59s, and we do not see those on our graphics on the right hand side, although you'll see them in the upper right hand graphics as dots. So when you look at me, you'll see me, somebody in front of me, and then there's a 3 or 4 second gap that's growing to the group there. And this is where I lose contact. I've previously spoken about being the butt end of those surges during those last 5 miles. What actually happens is that I'm on the edge and I just need to go another 3 or 5 seconds until everybody slows down. And that seems to work. And that is a hard thing to do because everyone else is hurting as I am. But hanging on for that 5 seconds is tough, not only physically, but it also can be mentally tough too. So we got to this point where I've now, it's gone past that 5 seconds, so to speak, and I just didn't have the legs to stay up with them. So now I am gathering the legs underneath me. I don't know who's behind me. I look back there on the graphics on that little map inset on the upper right-hand corner, and I don't see anybody behind me. Now, there may be people there from another category, but I think they would show up there too. So I'm waiting for the data to the right of me to catch up, or at least to put me more toward the middle so I can see who's behind me. Jumping ahead about 2.5 miles. I've been chasing this guy, this Jock Herregers from Belgium, and I've been catching up to him. So when I figure when I get there, I'm going to, if I have the legs, and I think I do, I'm just going to jump past him and then see if I can maintain a gap. Now, later on, I learned that the old Jock here is 19 years old, so I'm wondering how it's a 19-year-old guy doing in a 60-69 race. So I kind of figure that there's quite a few people, actually, that sign up for this race that aren't 60 to 69 in for our C category. The C's are the 60-69s. So I'm thinking that they see a road race, a flat road race, and they're a category C, and so they just sign up for it. They don't read the details that this is a master's race, or that that C's are specifically 60-69. That's okay. That's going to be taken care of on Zwift.com, although this guy made it all the way to Zwift.com. He's listed as under 20. Okay, so there I go. I'm jumping past him, and I'm actually standing. You can see me standing there, and he's now trying to go after me. So I'm just going to just stay on those pedals and still pound it as much as I can, hopefully that he will give up. I got about a second gap on him. And so it's a long ways to go, especially after a long road race. Again, I'm used to having races that are just under half this size, but be that as it may, I am going for it. Again, I didn't know this guy was 19 until I'm putting this video together. So I may not have done that, but I'm doing it now. I'm committed. Okay, last jump, I think. 1.2 miles to go, 2 clicks to go. So I've been trying to stay away from this guy. I've gotten it up to 5 seconds and held it for 5 seconds. And then we're floating back and forth, 4 to 5 second gap. And I figure I needed to get him to at least 6 seconds so I could feel safe. So I don't feel safe yet. And now this guy's worked his way back, and now he's at 2 seconds behind me. I am trying to hold at 3.5 plus watts per kilogram. And this guy's been jumping up to 4s and even touching 5. And that's how he's made up the gap. So now he's like a second behind me. So we have a mile to go. I don't think I can hold this guy off for a second. So now I'm thinking that, okay, I'm just going to dial back. I'm going to keep it up at a steady pace, but I'm going to dial back just a bit because I'm doing a lot of standing to try to get away from him, and that's been working earlier. But this old body can't do that over and over again. So now I'm about to be caught. I'm putting a few more bananas into it, and I got the 2 seconds again. Maybe I can hold it there, but then he gets it back to 1 second. And yeah, he's putting out a lot more power than I am. Little did I know again that this guy was 19 years old. When he comes by, the plan for me is to jump on his wheel. Now, that's the plan. I don't know if I'm going to be able to accomplish it. I'm really running out of gas here. And when I'm talking about running out of gas, my muscles are reaching the end of their limit. There I go again, 4.1, 4.0 watts per kilogram, trying to pour on some gas. I'm trying to make it so that he gives up, but dude's not giving up. And here he comes, and I'm going to try, but he's going, but he did what I did to him. He's going by strongly, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch up to him. No, there's this other guy that comes by. Now, this other guy, you don't see him on the graphics on the right because he is not in our category. He may be a 50 plus that got dropped, he and that other guy. So all I see is that is Herriger in front of me. I don't care about those two others. I just want to finish in front of that other guy. That other guy who's apparently only 19 years old. With a little over 5K to go, this has now become an equation for me. And it's how do I solve this? My go-to position is not to wait for the sprint, which of course means I go early. Now, if I had caught up to Herriger's, I'd be a lot more confident, but he caught up to me, which by default means I have no confidence, which I don't, but still, this is an equation to solve. I get that stupid close the gap message. I'm about 1 meters behind. Now it says 4 meters. I don't really understand this all the time, why it's doing it, but 4 meters behind him. And now we're coming into the finish. So he's doing about 7.0. I'm doing 5.2. I'm standing. I'm putting everything. I'm in the drops, and I'm trying to get past him, and I'm just not getting past him. And then basically I just give out. I give out. Those other two guys don't catch me, but I give out, and Herriger finishes in front of me. And now that I put this video together, I am seeing that he's 19, like I mentioned, like 3 or 4 times, and so I'm feeling a little bit better about that. Okay, so I think the 76 or whatever is with everybody that's in the race, you know, all the age groups. But I finished, I think, 15th out of 27. And when I go to Zwift.com, I am in 11th place, again, with Herriger's in front of me. So in a day or so, they're going to cut it down to 5-year age groups, which is part of the plan for these Bolt races. And I'll see how I do. But I've lasted a little over twice as far as I did this last time. This last week I did this race. So improvements. As far as a 19-year-old mistaking this for a Category C race, that's okay with me. If he wasn't here, I would not have had the workout that I did. So I'm good. All right. Hope you enjoyed this and got something out of this. Comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.